Hello and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We are live from our studios in Kokomlemle on detail address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. IGP arrives in Northeast region, promises violence-free election following violent attacks recorded at some registration centers on the ongoing exercise. Also, Defense and Interior Ministers to appear before Parliament's committee responsible for security agencies as accusations are leveled against soldiers for allegedly preventing some Ghanaians from registering as voters. Now, in Parliament today, MPs complain of high attrition rate in Parliament as 10 out of 275 MPs contribute to the real work of lawmaking. Also, rescue workers in Lebanon are searching for more than 100 people who are missing after a huge explosion devastated the port area of the capital Beirut on Tuesday. The blast killed at least 100 people and injured more than 4,000 others. All this and more coming up in the next 90 minutes. Stay with us. First story, the Inspector General of Police, James Opon-Bueno, has expressed gratitude to members of the Savannah Regional Security Council, REGSEC, for supporting the police at Kafaba in the recent arrest of 3 suspects in the unfortunate lynching of 90-year-old Ikia Dente. The 2 women seen in the video beating the old lady accused of being a witch are now in police custody, with 5 others facing charges for the crimes. Now, the IGP says REGSEC played an important role in the development. He was speaking in a visit to the Savannah region.
You have commendation for the police officers who are working. Law enforcement is a very difficult job, and most of the time you incur the displeasure of people if you want to do what you have to do. But he has shown that the police officers here, and like the regional commander said, the regional commander introduced himself to all of us as the son of the overlord. I am happy with that because I know that he lives peacefully with them. So I'm very happy that he has supported them. He continues to support the police. They are his own children, and if there's anything that is not going on well, if you let us know, we are always at service to ensure that the right thing is done. But I also appeal to him to continue to support the police in fighting crime, because his support for the police means a lot to us, and it will help us to encourage us to enforce the law and to fight crime in the community. While I'm in my father's palace, let me appeal to my brothers and sisters, the youth of Gonjaland. Please, if something happens, do not take the law into your own hands. Let the elders know, and they will let the regional commander know, or they will let RM know, and then whatever needs to be done, we will do. But please, do not take the law into your own hands, as done in other parts of the country. At the same time, I also appeal to you, my brothers, my sisters, my nephews and my sons from Ghana. We are going to have elections in December. And my appeal to you is that let us go to the polling station, cast our vote, and live quietly. We shouldn't entertain any appeal from anybody to go and engage in violence, because it doesn't help anybody. We are all one people. What do we get? If we go to the polling station or the state center and go and cause harm to people, injure people. After the elections, we will be in the same community. So how will we feel that during the election we cause harm to somebody, the elections are over, we are living in the same community with the same person? These are given to us. Let me say that we are so grateful to him, and we are going to work on the land, and I'll send a team to come and have a look at the land and see what we can do on that one too. In respect of the recruitment, that will also be considered when it is time for us to do our next recruitment. So you can rest assured. We are going to have exams, in fact, in about 1 week for all chief inspectors and inspectors. I think those who have done 4 years in the rank and those with degrees. So the promotion of chief inspector, you let write exams so that when after the exams, then we'll look at the request. Because if you give a free promotion, once you have passed the exam, you tell me we have passed the exam anyway. So why are you giving me the promotion? So after the exam, we look at all such cases where we have passed the recommendations. On that note, I want to thank.
Now we've been joined on the phone lines by our Savannah region correspondent Isaac Nonya. Hi Isaac, tell us where else the IGP has visited this afternoon and how has he been received?
Regional Police Headquarters. He moved straight to meet with members of RESEC. The regional minister welcomed him with his crew, and they have 1 or 2 words, mostly on the election and then that of Kafaba. On Kafaba, regional minister praised the IGP for putting his foot on the ground and being able to arrest all the key suspects that to him were due to his effort. He also told the IGP that the region has faith in him and they see him as one of them because having responded quickly to the request, I think the president will also side with the RESEC for teaming up with the police to be able to bring these people to book. I think the IGP also on the spot thanked regional minister in person for teaming up with RESEC to be able to help the police with logistics and other resources that enable them to partner with the police who came from Accra to effect the arrest. He also thanked Ghanaians for their sense of patriotism by exposing the suspects through information to the police, and he thinks that that should not be the end. They should still support the police to be able to monitor the ground and make sure that there's peace in Kafaba and Savannah region as a whole.
Now, Isaac, we understand that one of the key suspects in that Kafaba case was in court today. Do we have those updates?
Yes. Serena Mohammed, popularly known as Hajia Fatima, was in court today, and the charge placed on her was murder. But she was able to say something before the magistrate in court. She said that she came to this earth with some gifts from God, and that is to serve God and to do what was logic before God. So there was no way she was going to be desist from serving God. Even she was thrown to jail and comes out from jail, she could not serve God. So she has asked to come back, stay in police custody, and come along with the other 6 suspects in custody on the 20th of this month for a hearing.
Isaac, let me be clear. She believes that the murder of the 90-year-old Eke Dente was done in service to God.
Well, she didn't. The aspect of murder, she didn't mention it. What she said was that she went there to do her work, and what she saw was a directives from God. So she only did what that pleases God.
Which was to kill Eke Dente.
Yes. She was asked whether she knew of the death of the woman. She said she only did what God asked her to do. She didn't know about any murder or any killing, and she did not kill anybody in court.
Thank you very much, Isaac, for those updates. Expect more on this issue as the case develops. Now, at the Yagbonra Palace, the king, Yagbonra Tutumba Borisa I, said he is satisfied with the handling of this Kafaba case, especially on the arrest of the 7 suspects. Here's his spokesperson.
Serve the Savannah region. The Goja Kingdom wholeheartedly welcome the arrest of the Kafaba killing and wish to further express our satisfaction with the arrest of about 7 persons believed to have taken part in the lynching of Ikuya Dente, the late, a 90-year-old woman who was accused of witchcraft in Kafaba of the East Goja municipality of the Savannah region. Mr. IGP, I want to remind you that my office has forwarded to your office a request for security at the Japan Palace, Damango, through the Savannah Regional Minister 5 months ago, but have not had any response from your outfits. I therefore once again request for a 24/7 hourly security services at the Japan Palace, the seat of the Goja Kingdom of the Savannah region. This request became necessary the fact that there is no any professional security personnel stationed at the Japan Palace. The Goja Traditional Council resolved that it is therefore necessary to request for security for the protection of the king and the palace in general.
Now, away from that part of the country, a middle-aged man has been killed at Chogu, Manaile in Tamale, the northern regional capital. It's unclear what caused his death, but residents are saying he was killed by police stray bullets during a confrontation this afternoon. Correspondent Martina Bugri joins us on the line with more. Martina, give us a bit of background on this story.
Now we are told that 2 people stole some cattle and then they tied them in a forest nearby the Chogu-Manayili community. Lucky looted them and they caught them. Now they sent them to the chief palace, and apparently the people were agitated. They wanted to lynch the suspect. So the assemblyman said he was called in to get the police to come and rescue the man. And so
Martina,
he called the police, the police came in, the police. He says that, yes, he says that he handed over the suspect to the police. Now the people got agitated because they wanted to lynch the guy and they will not be allowed. And so they started throwing stones and missiles at the police that had arrived to pick the man. In the process, it hit the vehicle of the police, and so they started firing gunshots to disperse the police. According to the assemblyman, he said that he was standing by the man. Somebody had tried to grab the suspect, and the police grabbed him. And so he was standing there when he heard a sound, and then all he saw was that the person the police had grabbed was on the ground with blood oozing from his stomach. So I asked him who shot him. He said he doesn't know who shot him, but what he can say is that he was shot. I also spoke to the police, and they are saying that they are unable to say whether it's a gunshot until an autopsy is done. Now I've been speaking to the community members, and they are saying that they have had people come into the community and steal, and so they've been very vigilant. And this is as a result they have been able to pick some people they suspect to be thieves.
So have these persons, these suspects, have they been jailed?
I didn't get that, Daniel.
These suspects who were almost lynched by the crowd, are they now in police custody?
They are with the police, I'm told. This
person who is wounded, is he receiving medical treatment or he is back at home?
He actually died. He's actually dead now.
Do we know who he is? Do we know his family?
We have tried to speak to the community members. Nobody seems to know him. The assemblyman also says he's not a known person in the community, and the police also say that no one has come to report of a missing person yet.
Unfortunate story there. Thank you very much, Martina. The regional crime officer for the northern region, Kwabno Tui Champong, has joined us via Zoom. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for joining us. Now, if Mr. Otio Echampong can hear me, what is the report you have received concerning the death of this person?
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, yesterday in the evening we received a report that a young man, a suspected thief, was being lynched. So we dispatched our officers to the scene, and then they were able to rescue the suspected thief. According to the information, he had stolen 2 cows, and that's the thief, and then the cows were at the palace. So they went there and they were able to rescue the suspected thief. And at the time that they were escorting the suspected thief to the police van, then people started throwing, the agitated youth started throwing missiles, implements, even some fired guns, and one of our officers was even injured in the hand. And the prognosis by the doctor suggested that it was a gunshot. So in the process of putting the suspect in the vehicle, and also they were able to arrest 2 other suspects who had obstructed and were part of the agitated mob. So in the process of putting them in the vehicle, then one of the suspects was shot at. So quickly we rushed him to the hospital, and later he died at the hospital.
This person who was shot, help us understand what role he was playing there. Was he a bystander? Was he a suspect? What was he prior to the shooting? What role was he playing there?
Yes, the suspected thief that had been rescued is different from this person who had died. This person who had died was part of the agitated mob who was, very furious at the police for having not allowed them to lynch the suspected thief. So he was part of the mob that were attacking the police. So he was arrested together with 1 other. And in the process of putting him in the vehicle, that he was hit. And then we rushed him to the hospital and he passed on. And it's also instructive to state that one of our officers also sustained some injuries in the hand. And the prognosis done by the doctor suggested that he was also hit by gunshots.
Have you identified the officer who fired the gun that killed this person?
We are unable to even know whether the shot came from the police or the mob, unless a postmortem is done to establish the cause of death. When are you expecting to do this postmortem? Yes, for now we are trying to identify the disease and then get to know his family, the family, so that the family will be present at the postmortem to identify the body to the medical doctor. Are these police officials still at post? These police officials who were involved in this incident? Yes, they are in post. Yes, the injured officer has just been treated and discharged. All of the officers we sent for the rescue mission are at post. Kwabno Echampo, thank you very much for joining us. He is the regional crime officer for the Northern Region. Now, an exams officer of the Tamale Senior High School, Alex Na, is asking for protection for his family following attempts by some students last night to attack him. Let's go back to Martina for an update on that. So Alex Na says his students are trying to attack him. Why?
Yes, he says that his crime was that he had ensured that they comply to the exam regulations. He would not relax for anybody to engage in any malpractice. And that didn't go down well with the students because the students thought they would have the opportunity to copy, to engage in some malpractices, but that didn't happen. And so they were incensed. And yesterday around 7 in the evening, they mobilized until about 100 students, and they were heading towards his house to attack him. But they got the the assistant headmaster and then the senior housemaster and some other staff stopped them, spoke to them, brought in the headmaster, and they were able to calm nerves, and the students returned back to campus. But now he's worried that for him, he's able to escape part of his family. And so he thinks that protection should be sought for his family so that they will be safe. And that's what he's asking for. He says that his crime was just because he didn't allow them to copy. And the students thought that it was going to be an easy one for them to be able to engage in any more practice they have. But he says that he would insist on being strict until everything is over. But exams has just started. And so it means that there's possibly going to be several other attacks. He doesn't know. So what he needs now is protection for his family.
Have school authorities spoken beyond pleading with these students to go back to school? Have they indicated that any action will be taken against them?
We tried to reach the school authorities.
Still live on the Pulse. The story we just heard from Martina Bugri there is that some students of the Tamale Senior High School have attempted to attack an examiner they say was too difficult during the ongoing WASI examinations. This is one of the many cases of this sort that we are hearing today concerning students who want to be given the opportunity to cheat, or they want to get an opportunity to get exam papers ahead of the papers they write. We'll go back to Martina and wrap up with her on this. You said you were trying to reach the school authorities of Tamale Senior High School. Has that been successful?
That has not been successful, but what we do know is that the matter has been reported to the police, and police is handling it.
What about Ghana Education Service authorities? Are they handling it in any way?
At the time I was at the school, the Ghana Education Service and then the school authorities were in a meeting, and that's why we could not speak to them. But we're making follow-ups to get the details on what happened at the meeting and the outcome as well.
We'll come back to you, Martina, for exactly that follow-up and what the outcome of the meeting was. But still up north, an 83-year-old man has been kidnapped at Kambagu in the Bunkrugu Nakbanduri district of the northeast region by a group of people who accuse him of being a wizard responsible for the death of their family member. The man was said to have been taken away on a motorbike on Monday morning as he was on his way to a family meeting at a nearby village. It is believed he's been held at a witch camp in the Ghanaian community in Togo, one of the Ghanaian communities in Togo. This becomes the second time in a matter of weeks that we have heard of a Ghanaian who is an elderly Ghanaian being accused of witchcraft or wizardry, and it's almost costing him his life. For this man, he has been taken across the border to a Ghanaian community in Togo. We're just talking about the arrest of 7 people in connection with the death of Ikia Dente, who was accused of witchcraft and was actually lynched, meaning she was beaten to death. And fortunately, we have seen the arrest of 7 people, including the chief of the township, who ultimately presided over this injustice. We will come back to that story later in the bulletin, but for now, the Caucus of Elected Assembly Members Association of Ashanti Region has accused the former President Mahama of deception over his promise to pay the monthly salary if re-elected. The group accuses Mr. Mahama of inconsistency with the issue after refusing to sign a white paper that sought to implement this policy under his administration. Addressing a meeting with the Ghana Association of Assembly Members at his office last week, the former president pledged to design training programs to improve the capacity of assembly members, as well as pay them monthly allowances to encourage them to perform their duties.
We've been trying to improve decentralization, but by always taking it to the next step. And so when I was president, we set up to review the whole decentralization process and bring it down to its logical conclusion. And I had the privilege of handing over the staff that we took from the civil service to the newly formed local government service, which since then has been doing very, very well. We also pushed to bring true decentralization to the departments that were intended to be decentralized, especially education and health. And so we passed the legislation that was necessary, and we had the political will to begin the implementation. Now we all know the role assembly members play. The assembly member is in charge of an electoral area. And the assemblyman's electoral area is the basic unit of our governance. And so there are 5,500 electoral areas, or so within the country. And every assembly member has a number of communities within his electoral area. And so if you want somebody who has direct contact with the basic unit of our governance, then it's the assembly member. I have been a member of parliament too before, and in my constituency, I had like 26 electoral areas. But of course, I can't be in those 26 electoral areas at the same time. But I have assembly members who are in those 26 electoral areas. And so in the event that something happens, the first point of contact is the assembly member. By the time you get to the MP, whatever has happened should either have been resolved or it might be too late to even deal with it. And we all know, like he said, the knock on the door, at 1 a.m. because a child is sick or because a mother is in labor. I mean, just anything. Somebody has had a snake bite. Yenko assemblyman home. First point of call, Kokoko assemblyman, snake bite. And then you have to, if you have some motorcycle or something, you have to bring it out, or if you have your old taxi, you have to put them in and take them to the nearest medical center or something. So we know the responsibility that assembly members have. Health, education at the local level is your responsibility. Are the schools running properly? Do you have teachers to teach the children? All that is the responsibility of the assembly member. And at the end of your term, your community will say, oh, we didn't have teachers, you didn't let us have teachers, so we don't want you again. Meanwhile, it's not like you are the appointing authority. They expect that you must use whatever influence and contacts you have to make sure that they have teachers. And so the responsibility on assembly members is enormous. And the least that government can do is to help them to be able to do their jobs properly. And that is the commitment we have. And that's why I've talked about plenty issues that I'm happy that we could discuss.
Assembly members have often complained they struggle to execute their mandate because they are under-resourced. Though they agree a regular remuneration for them is long overdue, the 1,580 assembly members vow to resist any attempt to exploit them. Spokesperson Nana Kofi Senya echoes the sentiment of his colleagues.
The former president is being too inconsistent in his message this time, because you're looking at the assembly system and the assembly members and how they are influential in their various electoral areas. He thought that maybe he could use the assembly members, in this time around to kind of win votes. That's why he's trying to induce the assembly members by going around and saying that he's going to pay them wages. Whilst we know for sure that in your 2012 manifesto, right, you promise that you're going to pay assembly members through the consolidated fund and then use common fund as well. But this time he's talking differently. He doesn't even know where he's going to find the money. He said he will find money somewhere. And then if you listen to the video as well, he was trying to kind of allocate some duties to assembly members, why those duties have been assigned to the unit committees, because the law says that the unit committees are responsible for deaf and deaf registrations. But if you listen to the former president, he was saying that he's now going to, give this assignment to the assembly members as a duty so that he can pay them. Where is he coming from? The man is indisciplined when it comes to implementation of the law.
The group claims the Constitutional Review Committee in 2010 also proposed regular salary for assembly members, but government refused to grant approval. Immediate past presided member for Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, Abraham Bwedi, says repeated letters on this issue never got the attention of the former president.
I think the Constitutional Review Committee 2010-2011 make recommendation to the president, the late President Mills, and that white paper is on the table while the former president was in the office. So we are asking why did he sign that white paper, propose that they should pay assembly members. Then again, we wrote a lot of letters to the presidency, reminding the president about his manifesto that he promised 2012 that he will pay assembly members, but he didn't deliver it. And now there are additional assembly members. So we want to ask him a question. What deter him not to pay the assembly members as of that time? And now, what has he prepared to do? What are the bases? We want a report of 2012 to 2016. So we are trying to say maybe he lied to us, and he's continuing to lie to us. He can't do it because he's speaking as if now that he's coming to power, but he was there before.
The group referred to NDC's 2012 manifesto, in which the party had indicated its government will pay assembly members, but it was never implemented. Ahinsan Estate Assembly member Nanaya Redo is convinced the latest promise by former President Mahama can only mean deception.
What I'm saying is that this is a political season. We know everybody is going to come out with a lot of promises, but we don't want politicians to take undue advantage of assembly members. We know our rights, and we will be happy if something is coming to cushion the work of the assembly members, but not this time that everybody is campaigning that they are going to promise us heaven and earth, that they are going to pay us. The question is, the sitting president and the former president, they have all been given the opportunity to serve the country, and the assembly members were there.
Meanwhile, the group resolves to engage with members of the National Association of Local Authorities of Ghana, NALAG, and other stakeholders to push for remuneration for assembly members. Prince Apia reporting.
Yes, live on the Pulse. Now, with barely 4 months to election 2020, we ask, has the nation learned lessons from the bloody Ayaso West Wuogon by-election with pockets of violence at registration centers? We also want to have a conversation with security analysts and former UN peacekeepers on this subject. But before then, let's watch this news desk report.
A bloody by-election at Ayaso West Wuogon that saw masked operatives of the national security fire shots.
You killed a man in his own house. His own house.
We will count on the cooperation of all and sundry for the ultimate objective of investigating the violence and related incidents.
Ghana's democracy does not need vigilantes and vigilantism.
Parliament has since passed a regulation outlawing vigilantism and all forms of party militia. The Peace Council also got political parties to sign a code of conduct. But with barely 4 months to the polls, pockets of violence have already left many Ghanaians worried. Gunshots and the killing of a prospective voter is of concern.
Any move that will be put in place to ensure that people are engaged, they are in gainful employment, they have something to do, will help us a lot.
At this point in time, it's important for the police to be seen as fair.
We are facing an imminent threat and danger.
I want to take this opportunity to appeal to the youth of the Zongos to reject being used as pawn to perpetuate political violence.
Your election headquarters will, in the coming days, focus on raising awareness on how to prevent electoral violence.
Now, yesterday, both the NDC and the MPP held news conferences leveling accusations and counter-accusations against each other. First, here are some excerpts of the NPP's news conference addressed by party chairman Freddie Blay.
Do not be misled by John Mahama's hate for vote campaign. John Mahama has resorted to this old bogus propaganda trick used by empty and desperate tyrants of decades gone by, because he has no policy response to Akufo-Addo's social interventions and economic policies. Ladies and gentlemen, Akufo-Addo has been instrumental in maintaining peace and tranquility throughout the country, including in Dagbon, since he came into office. He will be, and I insist with sincerity, be the last to want to disturb the peace in this country. We must completely and totally reject Mohammed's hate for vote campaign and look at the real facts. Ladies and gentlemen, is it true that votarians are really being disenfranchised? I wish I could not be asking this question, but since he started it and is going around with it, let's now go to the facts. The facts say no. They are not. At the end of phase 5 of the registration exercise, after 30 days, 816 and 69 people have registered in the Volta region alone as against the 2019 regional votes register of 999 of the 2 places. Indeed, on a national average, registration in the Volta region, particularly in Ketu South, has been among the highest in the country. That's a fact. You are in a position to verify. As against the 2019 register, Greater Accra has performed the best across all regions of the country. It's expected. Followed by Upper West, Northern Region, Central, Savannah, John Mahama's own region. Followed by Bono East, Western, Volta before Eastern. Where is the discrimination, I may ask? Are the people of Savannah facing discrimination? I say no. What about the Northern region? I will also say no. Are the Krobos and Nevers in the Eastern region, specifically the Abuakwa areas, complaining about discrimination? Ladies and gentlemen, I will insist no. Have they not lived there for decades? And it's not where Akufo-Addo comes from? Please, let us not allow John Mahama to fool us with his hate for votes agenda. It's dangerous.
Now, listen to the NDC's news conference addressed by their head of communications, SAMMY GYAMFI.
President Akufo-Addo, who is a sponsor, promoter, and ultimate beneficiary of the ongoing electoral-driven ethnocentrism and tribal bigotry, has failed to take any action to nip these disturbing acts in the bud. We in the NDC are not surprised by the posturing of President Akufo-Addo towards this rather worrying trend, because this has always been his plan. This is why he has chosen to see nor hear no evil about any infamy or injustice to the Ghanaian people once it advances his electoral fortunes. The media space is awash with incontrovertible evidence and pictorial evidence on these happenings. Yet, as usual, President Akufo-Addo has chosen the path of deception and dishonesty to throw dust into the eyes of unsuspecting members of the public, to conceal the evil tribalistic voter suppression agenda he is supervising. We have also taken note of a labored effort by the Defense Minister, Dominic Nitio, to attempt to justify some of the ethnocentric events we have witnessed in the ongoing registration exercise. the defense minister's ludicrous attempts to explain away the sheer use of brute force and physical assault by certain elements in the once revered Ghana Armed Forces to prevent some legitimate Ghanaians from taking part in the ongoing registration process only goes to reinforce President Akufo-Addo's attitude of see no evil, hear no evil, once it advances your electoral fortunes. For the defense minister of Ghana to be justifying the unfortunate use of armed soldiers in peacetime to terrorize innocent civilians belonging to a particular ethnic group in areas such as Banda, Uti region, Ketu South, and so on, is ample testament to a deliberate targeting of that ethnic group and the ethnic groups I've mentioned, regardless of where they find themselves. Dominic Nitio should stop the unlawful use of armed military men to harass innocent Ghanaians based on their tribe or ethnicity in the ongoing voter registration exercise if he still has a conscience. Or shut up and spare us his lies if he has nothing meaningful to say. We have had enough of their chicanery and...
Hello on the pulse here on Joy News. Still up ahead in Parliament today, MPs complain of high attrition rate in Parliament as 10 out of the 275 members of the House contribute to the real work of lawmaking. That's coming up a bit later. Stay with us. Now, back to school blues hits Germany weeks after Ghana had its own share of internal criticism when the government decided to partially open up our schools. In our crossover to Germany, we focus on reopening of their schools despite long-held fears of a second wave of the pandemic and the return of many vacationers, which only seems to worsen those fears. Correspondent William Glucroft is with our DW partners and he joins us with more. William, here in Ghana, we closed down all schools and partially reopened for final year students to finish up. But Germany's schools were on vacation. Is this a partial or a full reopening?
It's right, as you say, Germany got lucky in a way when the pandemic really hit the country. It was right around Easter break just then, so schools more or less took an extended break, then came back for a little bit or were closed a little bit longer and then went right into summer. So as much as that situation was extremely difficult here in Germany, it was worse in many other places like where you are, and it could have been much worse here in Germany. And now schools in Germany are facing that very challenge, going back to school in a normal way amid a very abnormal situation. It should be noted that Germany is a federal system. There's 16 states here, and education policy, and to an extent health policy as well, are determined at the local and state level. So the rules are going to be very different depending where in Germany you are. You're also not everyone going back to school at the same time. Germany has a staggered school system, meaning that some states will go back to school earlier than others. We had one state in northern Germany go back this week. Berlin will go back next week. And between now and the middle of September, the remaining states will slowly go back to school, which is in a way good news because it allows schools and school systems and states where the schools are not back in session to watch very carefully, and I'm sure they are, the way things are going in parts of Germany where schools are in session, and then they can adjust their rules accordingly. But how these rules are really going to play out, that's what has many people worried.
And that's where I am curious as well, William. What do authorities say is the strategy?
The strategy is similar to what we see in other parts of public life. For example, here at the office, where we're allowed to sit at our desks without masks, but if we're walking around the office, we have to have masks on. The same will be in schools. Students and teachers moving about their day, they have to have masks. But in some states, not all again, because as I say, it's different from state to state, but in some states, they don't have to wear masks at their desks. There's also going to be all of the hygiene rules, the disinfection, the hand washing that we've all had to experience. There's going to be a lot of that going on. There's going to be making sure that there's distance between students and teachers, and there's going to be regular and free testing available to everyone, regardless of symptoms. And one final thing, students, we're told, are going to be divided into what's called cohorts. These are going to be small groups of students who will stay with each other the entire time and not mix with other cohorts. The idea here is that you can keep infections low, and if there are infections, it can be contained within these cohorts. So the cohorts, these groups, can be quarantined without affecting the rest of the school.
Interesting. Now, there were already fears of a second wave, and that is worsened by the return of vacationers. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the most recent press conference from the Robert Koch Institute, that's the public health institute here in Germany, that's the #1 place to go to for all coronavirus information. They say that although there is some risk from vacationers returning from elsewhere, from outside of Germany, that is not the main risk. That is not the main source of the increase in infections that we're seeing in Germany. And there has been an increase in infections. That's mostly coming from large group gatherings all around Germany, whether it's a church gathering, whether it's some kind of party or a social gathering. That's where the Robert Koch Institute is seeing the majority of cases spike. And of course, as we've discussed between us the last several weeks, the working conditions on farms and in meat processing facilities, these are the kinds of places. But absolutely, as vacationers come back from outside, from other places around Europe, from Turkey, from Asia, wherever they may be coming back from, there's definitely the big question of what are they bringing back with them. And that is why the German government right now is trying to find a legal way to require tests when returning to airports, to train stations, and across land borders with their cars.
Interesting, William. Now, again, here in Ghana, the government was heavily criticized, even for the partial reopening. What's the general reaction to all these developments in Germany?
It's mixed. Parents are, of course, thrilled to have their kids back in schools. Remember, back in the spring, it was very difficult for families who were working to find a way to take care of their kids who were home. It was very difficult to find ways to keep the education going, to keep their learning going. Also for the schools, teachers want to have students back. Everybody wants to go back to normal. The question is how and how to do it safely. You have the head of the Social Democrats, that's one of the parties in power here in Germany, criticizing the plan, calling it an illusion to think that this is even possible, that all of these ideas and plans can really happen. In practice, you have the teachers union that represents the teachers are being very critical about how to do this safely, especially since many of their teachers are in risk groups themselves. But the bottom line is school has to happen in some way. That's something that the UN has said. The UN has said that this pandemic has been a catastrophe for students, for young people trying to learn all around the world. Where you are in Ghana, here in Germany, affecting especially people of lower income, people who struggle the most. Let's not forget, school is not just a place to learn, it's a place to make friends, it's a place to learn how to live in the world, and for especially many poorer students, it's where they get their meals every day. So there's a lot of very important reasons that students need to go back to school. It's just how to do it safely and ensure that it doesn't affect the growing infection rate here in Germany.
Interesting updates there. Thank you very much, William, and stay safe yourself.
You too. Thank you.
That was William Glucroft. He's our correspondent with our partners DW for our weekly crossover. Still live on the pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. We're going to take you to Beirut in a moment, but before that, let's look at the latest numbers of COVID-19 here in Ghana. 574 new cases. Take a look at that box on the top right corner. 39,075 confirmed cases. Since we started recording COVID-19 cases in the country, we've seen 8 new deaths, bringing the number to 199. But the light blue box there, giving us a ray of hope. Recoveries and discharges is at 35,563. That brings our active cases on the left side of the screen to 3,313. 3,313. Below that number is a regional breakdown, which you see there, right on your screen. The Greater Accra region, of course, leading with some 20,000 cases. Ashanti region following with some 9,000, over 9,000 cases. Then it goes on and on right after that. Stay safe out there. Please make sure that you're following all the safety protocols, and most importantly, don't stigmatize anyone who tests positive. Elsewhere, rescue workers in Lebanon are searching for dozens of people missing a day after a huge explosion devastated the port area of the capital, Beirut. The blast, which shook the whole city, killed at least 113 people and injured more than 4,000 others. A 2-week state of emergency has been declared. Here's a report by our partners, DW.
A devastating blast, followed by billows of smoke, visible from all across the city. The massive explosion rocked Beirut on Tuesday evening, flattening the city's port area, with buildings destroyed and people trapped under the rubble. Ambulances raced to and from the area, transporting the injured to hospitals. We were at home. We heard what sounded like fireworks. We thought it was a container in the port that was on fire, and they weren't able to put it out. A few seconds later, we were flying through the air. We heard the first explosion. We went to see what happened. I didn't have time. I didn't realize there would be a second explosion. The glass exploded in front of me. The blast destroyed buildings not only at the port where it originated, but across much of Beirut, even kilometers away from the epicenter. Shop windows were smashed, walls and doors of people's homes knocked down. The Prime Minister said those responsible will be brought to justice. It will not pass without accountability. Those responsible for this catastrophe will pay the price. This is a promise to the martyrs and the injured. This is a national commitment. The blast hit a country already struggling with the coronavirus pandemic and a deep economic crisis. Hospitals, already burdened with COVID-19 patients, are overwhelmed. Countries, including longtime rival Israel, have offered humanitarian aid to Lebanon. Support is sorely needed to help the country deal with this enormous catastrophe.
Now, the family of the 29-year-old man whose death sparked Tuesday's demonstration in AWOSHIE say it is yet to come to terms with the loss. Thomas Nyamavo was hit and killed by a moving vehicle on the road due to a malfunctioned traffic light at about 10 p.m. on Monday. Situation that led to a massive protest as residents claim the traffic light has been malfunctioning for the past 3 years. Grandmother of the deceased, Veronica Nyamavo, is pleading with government to fix the traffic light as she claims she was almost knocked down a week ago. And Nancy Amefajo-Adosi has more.
On Tuesday, this stretch, this Ablekuma Highway, and AWOSHIE in general was at a standstill for one reason, because they were fed up and tired about the needless deaths that have occurred on this stretch because of the faulty traffic lights. Today, 24 hours after this demonstration, it appears nothing has changed. From the junction from where we came from to where we are standing, nothing has happened. We've been here for close to 30 minutes and we see cars flying, going speed, with people waiting patiently for no car to show on before they cross the road. I've been speaking to quite a number of people even before we got here, and they tell us that they're generally tired, but they're going to continue with the demonstration in the coming week because they've been given 1 week ultimatum for this to be fixed.
Students and then people from around find it difficult crossing the road. Here lies the case. This is a high street where people move from Banyard to Pokwasi. And when the cars are coming, they just come with a full speed, irrespective of the people standing aside the road. So sometimes we, the people, we try to maneuver our way to cross the road. And in that case, some of the cars just knocked down people, and I think last 2 days or so we recorded 2 deaths around. People just died on the street. And I think the last Sunday when Akufo-Addo gave the speech, somewhere along Farm Oak Junction, a certain young girl like my age was knocked down by a car, and she just died at the spot. To the extent that you can't even recognize her face, you can't even recognize who she was. So this situation over here is so appalling. We are pleading to the government that she should look at we the students and we the people around, because our life also matters a lot, and fix the traffic lights for us, because very soon schools will reopen, students will cross the street.
Madam for pa neba ofri school say school be ho Makati school na ho no nkwala twam traffic light impemfo ne hu say asai munum say nkwala so mo pon both side no ebi mu free hako and ebi mu free enye neba and we be demonstration wa ha no dem abefo obi say on direct traffic and so I say munim ade na yakoso wa ha no there's a way am ye we dem mo sambra next week mo won so obi gina ha na nti yes yenyina na mo yenyina politics ni ye di akire but no maybe wa ha edu ba bia e ha adwen.
We had a boy there telling us that his best friend has been involved in an accident before. But I would want to speak to this pastor because, as I mentioned earlier, when I came, I saw him trying to stop vehicles to allow people to cross the road. Let me. Okay, so looks like he's trying to stop the cars to allow people. Try to stop the cars and let people to cross the road. Good morning.
Your friend Pastor Jackson.
Pastor Jackson. Na me who say what jai ejuma wo ye na be jina ha direct traffic. Okay. All right. Me who say we jai ejuma na wo ye no aba be jina kwan ho a wo stop cars nti ade wo ye de bia na.
Madam say me start here sorry from Anopa 6 every Monday to Friday. Every day. This time coronavirus ni yare na ba nti ama nkwala ni mbe school. But when I go to school, I have to stop and cross them. I was saying because cars in the the speed power. It's my traffic light once 3 years in here. Traffic light to say 3 years, madam, 3 good years. Yeah. Car bonko for her, minimum higher, car bobby and manaso. Baku so a pajano consult to say film. And I was saying, Chayama, then yes, I say demonstration. Eh, yeah. Car bobby says, yeah, no, Monsieur Yamra so for car bobby, or Miss Minyasam mine. Yes, me nyasam remind. Bibia na so me hu dia me ye. Na me so me use medium na me patch say. Omo me travel light ma ka madam omo me ye. Na nro omo tigum so omo ye demonstration. Enti se hu ya, on say as you can see, omo ma ho ye nti ho hwe. Enro omo kan no, ye omo nti hwe. Oh, police na anapa ba kwa be gina ho. Police na nkasa be gina ho say yes, tough. Because the ever see me omo adwene ye. I'm telling Ghana for the bebre ya adwene ye. About the speed. Onim se ne yira bonasum dia I don't know. Eti obi do ha speed no dey onyina da. As you can see omu nyina da. Ti bo se nkola no basa. E na abofra nani anhwe from peka no bebo no. Ti e yara hosem. Ti momwae.
Mr. Niwakasa, mami 1 minute. Let me just translate. So Pastor Jackson has been working here for more than 3 years.
4 years.
For 4 years. So what he does is that when he comes at 6 a.m., he juggles between reading the word of God and then going into the middle of the road and trying to stop vehicles from crossing to allow the pedestrians to cross the road without getting knocked down. Because as he says, he has witnessed several times people getting knocked down by cars. And he says it is something that is very worrying because sometimes residents have to rush to his residents to come and tell him to help because another accident has happened. But he says it's not the assemblyman, he's not an authority. He is simply saying that if government is able to get a police person to come and stand here after the demonstration, then it is possible that government can get this traffic light fixed to save more lives.
After my interaction with residents, I managed to find the family of Soso, the 29-year-old man who died last Monday.
But thankfully, I have found the family, the grandmother to be precise, Madam Veronica Nyabe. Thank you very much, Madam. Meka togbenye Soso.
Soso angloto anglovi. Kaka da hakble ausato no. Tanito zoragba. Afi abaga yurikina. Yehova yom ba ahofela magwasi. Komiela duje ya ovakwe adue afi mieda. Ovinyo zamo avaya kpo afi odero. katso blaragba imira police station or niava kaona hava driver nyima ko bulo kira ho ko mi ha tola mu katso mo bo ira koja o ya di fligia
ta ekule sport alo
numaka.
Okay, so let me just translate briefly what she's saying. She's saying that she was here on Monday when some group of men came to knock at her door and told her that a car has knocked down the grandson Suso. So she and her children decided to run to the side. But when they got there, they had taken the boy to the hospital. They have been following up. They went to the police station yesterday. They started the processes. The man in question who has lost his life is already in the morgue. And so the family members are also yet to decide on a number of issues. But let me just find out from him what this loss means to the family. So beko cooking and defuna akomia
of nuka tama furago arafu kaka yejito
like will affect me.
Nyanai first one jinya ngogua iba vie ta hada funami
ya eno pleto cholia
anoku atoa zomo baira sikakufa nyanya shikola shao yo adresse na mi adresse ya ava bu mi ku ta to mi za gba bu mi karamu
me ko be ejibe ya favi chi ejo chele susu me to na we
ma ivalo Vinye abura baye me ba ayira me hono bio akwa ode fa sokono mayira ho nti
so she's trying to hold back tears, but it's not working. She's simply talking about how deeply the family has been affected by this death, because she says that Soso is her first grandchild, and then now we catch a buying and then for so more fixed street light. Then I'll be catch almost so omonye. To see her now, we lose a grandson because of a traffic light, and then I'll be catch almost so omonye.
Say I buy me so say dear, me pay so me. Let me see me ban. I feel so traffic here, you know. 1 year my. Hard dream, boy. I did a year from Wohan, Nanya Ingua, a moya day my. Yen Musen, yen to me, John. It's like a tessia for no. Until 1 way, no, ya my. They say, why, ya. Casanova, Omagina, I saw Cania my, near chum. Asana, Masako. I said, dear, my dear my. Until 1 woman. 1 woman.
All right, so
one woman, what?
So that's
woman I'm seeing. Why? I know so many. Can I know so I am I?
See, I wish on the kind tonight, Muntime and settle on dates.
I say, can also, I feel so much. I was every coming. You coming to me, Jenna. Was every coming.
So you've been listening to Madam Veronica. She is simply speaking and trying to plead to the conscience of government. She says that, one, she doesn't have money to bury the grandson because, as he says earlier, the man in question, Mr. Suso, is the one who is the breadwinner and has been providing for the family. And so, you know, his death is a big blow to the family. Secondly, she is pleading with government to fix the traffic lights and not wait for somebody else to die before they fix it. And so instead of waiting for another person to die, why not government come and fix the traffic lights so that they save the lives of many people and many residents living in this area. But even as we speak, there are quite a number of people standing around me, you know, nodding and talking about what this means for them. I would want to just speak to one woman because I hear her, you know, speaking and chanting throughout the conversation. I see that you are very angry.
I'm very angry, really, because the traffic light is killing. Many people are dying, plenty people, a lot of them. So please, we are begging the government to do something about it.
How difficult is it for you crossing that road?
It's very difficult to cross that road. It's very difficult, even to walk before. I think one
is it a mile or
a mile before we go to that road? It's risky. It's very risky. It's very hard. So please, we are pleading for the government to come to our aid, to come and see for us.
Did you know the guy in question, Mr. Soso?
Oh, I don't know him. I know him, but not much. Yeah. Not much. I know him very well. So please, we are begging, we are pleading for the government to come to our aid because they are dying. Many people are there, almost 10. Even school children, especially the school children.
We have not opened the school for the school children to go back to school, and that's why we are saved a little. But aside that, when you want to cross the road, you can even use 1 hour 30 minutes to cross that road because there are cars that are not stopping.
They are not stopping.
They are not stopping. From the Banyard to the Mangwase, they will be coming with top speed. From NIC to Banyard to they will be coming with top speed, and which is not fine. Madam, one can so jina, obet me jina wasa.
Before they cross,
any cabian stop now. But jina wasa, and ubet you my just was so be sa. Na munyama by in group, and the cabet me jina ma. But apart from that, cabian jina ma.
It's impossible.
Ubet you ma, utumichum to say obi of you crossing our bank craft.
It's true.
Utumichum to say America because one chuma ko jina the middle pavement now. Uba say na kabebo. That's it, Mr. Banyard say, card in who pay me. And I'm a to form. The guys were coming to beat the driver and I'm saying that Munja no man uncle. What I say? The Mumbai traffic light in my dear.
It's very
the
bad.
Guy will be 1 week in a bay and 1 week. You better block a coin.
Really?
You better she tie. Both road ninya, you mo bianco, and we start in the morning like 5 o'clock. And you best starting. Send a bay or beer or could you be out, who take a more BC.
Really? It's true.
Because I had nye baby I can't say I'm for the life be diagro. Just seremo. Only thing and no man ko edwuma because I know here demonstration we no and then person me
enough. Your boy yes sra ban say o me boy ankwala ni wu okwan so yes sra mo pa any other sra there and person e be do about to friends and number be 1212 bi yes sra bia yes sra abrekmanof MC MP aban ye nyina ye involve ye nyina emwa
menwe bia na me wo fase ana madofo bi obetwa kaka we na ka bono.
Yeah, it's very painful. It's
what I say anything I am my demonstration no enye se bibia e ka be ko edwuma ba wan fa ho anjima ana e dey no wo fase ana onwe bi ana wadofo ana girlfriend ana boyfriend ko twem na ka bona
no wa
lusunu so te na
mucho we dey
police for na so for na because no mo so shegu yesu kra yesi yenko ye dwale de be ka chom se ye ndwale nto mo omo fa so she ngu ye ho and I say obi ade.
We are begging.
Obi ade.
Oh really? They will come. Like today now they will come and do it.
My problem is that
today now they will
because the schools we have so many schools over here. So many schools over here from here to Dogodon to other schools. My begging to the government that they should come to our aid. Even safe food bridge. Even like Kwashima. The children should have to cross the street, even the streets, to climb this thing.
Yeah. Away from that story, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, AMA, in collaboration with the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, launched an initiative in January 2018 aimed at ending open defecation in the city. The initiative, dubbed Reduced Price Household Toilets, is under the Greater Accra Metropolitan Area Sanitation and Water Project, Gamma SWP. Available statistics indicate that about 1 out of 5 Ghanaians defecate in the open, translating into an estimated 5.7 million Ghanaians engaged in open defecation. Even though the project has yielded some results, there is still more to be done, as some households are unable to meet their side of the agreement. Chief Executive Officer of SAMMY Solutions, Samuel Jabba, has helped North attain the status of open defecation free, a feat that needs to be applauded. But how do we replicate this in every corner of the country? Joining us via Zoom is the Chief Executive of SAMMY Solutions to tell us how he was able to achieve this feat and how it can be replicated everywhere. First of all, congratulations. Tell us about this project.
Thank you very much for having me on your program. The GYAMFI project, as you rightly said, is aimed at providing household toilets to vulnerable income who otherwise would not be able to access improved toilets. And SAMMY likely happens to be one of the sanitation contractors on the project. So after we were rolled up on the program in 2016, what we found out was that there were still a lot of households who are down there below the middle class and low income brackets. And these people are the most vulnerable who actually need the toilet facilities. So we reached out to them. We found out that even the 30% that is required by GYAMFI to be contributed to the households, these vulnerable people couldn't afford it. We visited some of the communities after some community engagement. We found out that they really need the toilet facilities, but they can't raise the required 30%. And it will amaze you that in this day and age, there are still communities that doesn't have household toilets. They don't have access to public shared toilets. It's amazing. About 80% of the community people don't have access to toilet. And because they don't have access, what they do is to defecate in the open. Some defecate in the bush, refuse dump, backyard, roadside. So it's an eyesore in the community.
Now, authorities at the Kintampo College of Health and Well-Being are calling on government and get fund to help in the completion of a hostel facility that has been abandoned by a contractor since 2007. According to authorities, the project will help in tackling the increasing cases of insecurity in the school, as well as reduce congestion. The facility, when completed, will provide accommodation for about 400 students. Now, the Bono East Regional Correspondent, Anat Sabit, visited the school and now reports.
The Kintampo College of Health and Well-Being, currently with a student population of about 4,500, can only accommodate 12% of its students due to the absence of hostel facilities. With nearly 90% of these students staying outside the school premises in private hostels, there is growing insecurity in the school, especially at night. Dr. Kwabna Opoku Aduse is the director of the college. He shares with JoyNews how the development is affecting teaching and learning.
As we speak now, the school accommodation can take only about 12% of the whole lot of about 4,500. And then some of them are housed in private houses in town and all that, with all its insecurity, and then it doesn't also promote learning. In the night, after studies, when they are going home, these young town boys hold them to ransom with knife, at times gunpoint, snatching their telephones, their bags, their money. A whole lot of things happen. I talk about rape. I talk about how the guys, when they take those bubuya and all those things, after they crawl from them, well, I don't know what they do. They hold them over, do whatever they want to do, abandon them. So there are a whole lot of things. If you go to the police station and they'll give you countless reports of such insecurities, and then it doesn't help studies.
With the school facing these infrastructural challenges, an uncompleted 4-story Get Fund hostel facility, which was started by ex-President John Ajikum Kufuor in 2007 but was abandoned before the end of his regime, is still at the mercy of the weather. Dr. Aduse appealed to authorities for the completion of this project capable of accommodating at least 400 students.
Get Fund project, which was started about 2007 thereabouts. It was abandoned. I don't know why, probably as usual Ghana, lack of funds or whatever, change of political leadership and a whole lot of things. It was supposed to accommodate about 400 students. So what we are appealing to the authorities is that they should come back and complete it for the primary purpose for which it was started. That will help the students to help their learning.
He added that with the COVID-19 pandemic, the school will face difficulties should school resume in full session in the next academic year.
As of now, we are lucky just final year students and then some students. The problem will come more when if all the other students come. We are still lucky because it's just final years. But when the whole school comes, we have a way. What it means is that we must have more lectures, more classes, and probably the academic year we have to be prolonged because of the time allocation and then timetable and other issues. So yeah, I think that authorities should come complete it as soon as practicable so that you put it to the good use.
So this is the plight of the authorities here at the Kintampo College of Health, and they are calling on government as well as the Get Fund to swiftly come to their aid before the situation gets out of hand. From the Kintampo College of Health here in the Bono East region, I am Anas Sabit for JoyNews.
Live on the Pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. We'll take just a few messages. We'll be back with more. Stay with us. You're live on the Pulse here on JoyNews. Now, this afternoon, we are learning that apart from the high attrition rate in Parliament, MPs are complaining that only 10 out of the total number of 275 contribute to the real work of lawmaking. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu is blaming this on the monetization of Ghana politics. He says this practice is creating an unstable environment and in Parliament and endangering the country's democracy. He was speaking at a forum on the need to nurture career legislators.
And to note that Ghana's democratic story is one of a success in Africa, and renewal of members of Parliament remains an imperative. However, there are eminent and major threats to Ghana's democratic process, notably vigilantism and our inability to punish it. And now more recently, the monetization of our democracy, which will not only create an unstable parliament, but will undermine the entire democratic process and deny the people of Ghana what is largely described as the democratic dividends. It appears today that democracy in Ghana is on sale when it comes to competitive democratic politics. The Westminster Foundation for Democracy, in some research conducted between 2012 and 2016, estimated that the cost for running for parliament as candidate was around the region of $86,000 US, which was about 390,000 Ghana cedis. Now, if you compare it to the earnings of an MP, which at the time was between 233,000 to probably 300,000, or even today, you rate it to 400,000. You'll be asking yourself what the motivation is when men and women in Ghana are ready to pay as much as 1 million. The recent MPP primaries, we've seen persons confess openly that I spent up to 3 million Ghana cedis. Where did the money come from? That is not to say that it's a problem akin only to the New Patriotic Party. In my party, the NDC, party primaries have witnessed some exchange of money as if to suggest that bribing and vote buying was permissible under Ghanaian law. and utter disrespect to the provisions of the Political Parties Act of Ghana and our commitment to fight corruption. But we saw chief executive officers banded money around in the recent primaries. It also revealed that whilst MPs were poor, chief executive officers were richer and probably affluent. It also means that our democracy probably will be the preserve of the elite and the wealthy into the future. That is why I must commend this initiative of an introspection today for us to examine how we protect it. My own view will be that we would need major reforms of our political parties, the way they are organized and the way they are run, the way our political party leadership are determined, and the manner and process and procedure for the determination of members of parliament will have to change. We will have to have a defined upper and more considerate role for the parties in parliament, probably to do an assessment of the members of parliament to guide the political party itself in their way forward. I'm not even sure.
Now, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins us live. Joe, what else have leaders in the House been discussing?
A number of things. All this has been unfolding at a forum that focuses on a discussion around nurturing career politicians instead of those who come in just as a way to probably build on their fame and also their social capital and all. Among others, as you rightly indicated, Haruna Idrisu, the minority leader, expressed concern that when it comes to the real work of lawmaking, in terms of bills that come to the House and amendments that are done to it and what is called the consideration of bills, only about 10 MPs that actually engage in that. And then he referenced the high number of new MPs who've come in and said that when it comes to that, you can only count about 3 or 5 of them who are engaged in that. All the rest end up doing things like delivering statements, contributing to discussion, but he was concerned that the real business of lawmaking, as it's even unfolding now. Right now, the House is looking at the Registration of Births and Deaths Act, and I can tell you for certain that, Daniel, right now, there are no more than 20 members of parliament on the floor as we speak, going through that specific business. But even broadly, some of the MPs are also raising concern about those who turn up in the House and undertake general business in terms of contributing to debates and attending committee meetings. Muntaka Mubarak, the minority chief whip, makes a case that from his sense, only about 100 of the 275 MPs are actually working as members of parliament. The rest only show up, sign their names as having turned up in parliament, and then go ahead and do other things and take their salaries at the end of the month. And he thinks that's completely out of place and things should change going forward.
Now, who are the organizers of this forum, Joseph?
This is actually a forum by the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, which has Authority Mensa Bonsu as the minister in charge of that particular ministry. So they've been doing a series of such engagements following on varying subjects. And now the push on the part of the ministry is to create a situation where people will come to Parliament and stay for a longer period. In fact, Mensa Bonsu made the argument that when it comes to being a lawmaker, moving motions and working on bills and all, the longer you stay in the House, the better you are. So he's virtually championing a case where people don't just come to Parliament and have to depart after 4 years. He wants to see a situation where people are spending as long periods as possible. And this forum, as the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs organized today, was to create a situation where a conversation will begin on creating career members of parliament who will stay in for as long as possible and get the real business of making law and oversighting the executive arm of government done.
Now, away from the forum, Joseph, we understand that Dr. Yao Educhum, the Deputy Minister of Education, was in Parliament today to answer a few questions.
There were questions to him from Dr. Clementa Park and a number of other individuals, and he's been responding to questions specifically on what exactly is being done to ensure that students are protected even as they return to the classroom despite the COVID-19 pandemic. And he says that all the necessary steps have been put in place, must have been supplied to the students They are ensuring that in every class there aren't more than 25 to 30 people in the classrooms. They are limiting the number of hours that the students have to stay in. They are ensuring that third parties don't show up on campus to come visit the students. And those are some of the measures that parents have been put in place in order to protect the students. He's also been indicating that staff of the various schools have been trained so that then they would have basic training in order to spot symptoms of COVID-19 and all. And they are equipping schools with thermometer guns and as well ensuring that students actually dine in buses, some of the measures. He's also been responding to questions on students who are actually not present in the classroom. What is being done to make sure that they benefit from various e-learning platforms? And he says the television is being made available when it comes to teaching and learning, and even in rural communities. Directors of education are making separate provisions, both using the internet and using the television to actually help students learn. Just to tell you about this, finally as well, the Speaker, Professor Michael Quayle, has given the Communications Minister 48 hours, asking her to show up in Parliament latest by Friday morning, because she didn't show up today when there was a question about how much government has raised from the Kelnick GVG contract over the last few years. Daniel.
Interesting. We'll be keeping an eye on that one to see what the developments are. Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, for bringing us the latest from Parliament. And this is where we wrap up today's Bulletin of the Pulse. My name is Daniel Dazi. Thanks for joining us. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. Remember, you can find the playback of the Pulse on the audio on the video on the Go page on myjoyonline.com. So catch us there. We'll be back tomorrow with another exciting edition of the Pulse.